Welcome back to the Daily Mastermind. George Wright III here with your daily dose of inspiration, motivation, and education. And I hope you're having a great week so far. And going into the weekend here, I wanted to give you some food for thought, something that you could really use to sort of create your strategy for the upcoming week. But before we do, let me get you started off with the quote of the day. The quote of the day is by Johnny Carson. It's, "My success just evolved from working hard at the business at hand each day." And I think sometimes a lot of us forget that the success and the progress we make is just day-to-day activities, day-to-day things that slowly and incrementally take us closer to our goal. So that's a great quote. I love that quote. So let's talk a little bit right now about failure and about the fear of failure, because I think a lot of times entrepreneurs, individuals, look, anyone in life, a lot of times we don't do the things we know we need to do because we fear failure. And we look at failure in a light that doesn't really benefit us. Because when you say failure, what comes to mind for you? Is it stress, anxiety, disappointment, dissatisfaction? Of course, these are all components or, results of failure, but I believe, and I've talked about this before, I believe that when you can change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Just like Wayne Dyer would say over and over. And so how you view failure is such a key. When we view failure as a bad thing, then we fear it and we want to avoid it. And that's why we don't go outside our comfort zone. That's why we don't do the things that we know we need to do in order to progress in life, to grow, to hit our goals, to be, satisfied and fulfilled and happy. So what I want to recommend to you is that you take a different approach to failure. And maybe you've heard this before, maybe this is just a reminder for you, but sometimes subconsciously, when we have this perspective of failure where we view it as a bad thing, we subconsciously avoid things and we don't realize we are. We avoid certain activities. Maybe it's with your job. Maybe you're avoiding the very activities that are going to create the success that you want, like prospecting or selling or contacting new customers or designing something that you're not comfortable with because you don't feel like you have the talent to do it. Well, when we avoid these things, we know deep down they're going to keep us from our goals. But because we fear the failure of them, we subconsciously avoid them. And so what I want to recommend is that you start to view failure differently. And one of the ways that you can do that, one of the ways that I believe it could help you to view failure differently is to understand, accept, and be prepared for how to handle it. Because when we prepare ourselves to deal with things that are uncomfortable, we're more comfortable dealing with them. And so I want to give you sort of like 5 keys or steps to overcoming failure, because I think that these steps and these keys to overcoming failure will help you to deal with failure. And then you won't avoid the things and the activities that you need to do. Because look, we all fail. But what most of us don't realize is that failing is just one of those key ingredients to achieving your success. And so anyone who's ever had, success of any kind has failed over and over and over. So let's talk about how you can deal with failure, how you can overcome failure. The first thing you need to do is you need to learn from your mistakes. Now, I know you've heard that before. I know you've heard, we got to learn from our mistakes. But are you actually consciously taking the steps to learn? Learning, for example, like when you learn to ride a bike, it's not easy. You probably fell off your bike 100 times before, but it's worth all the hard work in the end. And nothing can stop you from riding a bike now once you've learned. But you've got to literally go through the process. So here's what I want to recommend you do. In order to learn from your mistakes, think about a mistake that you've made. Think about a failure you've had recently. And I'd like you to just take a second, identify what it is, and write down 5 things you learned from that failure. This is a really important exercise, because when you look for the learning lessons in the failure, you begin to look at failure differently. You now look at it as, wow, now I know what not to do. Now I know what I can do. Now I know how to deal with it better. And you become more comfortable with overcoming that failure. So learn from your mistakes and failure. The second thing is, don't dwell on it. Now that you've learned something from the mistake that you have, move on. Don't dwell on your past. You can't tell where you're going if you're constantly looking back. And when most of us do this, we dwell on our past failures and we keep that heavy weight tied around our neck and holding us back, and the chains that are just slowing us down like an anchor. And you've got to make the conscious decision not to dwell on it and to move forward. Then what you have to do, the third thing you've got to do is you've got to make sure you're not afraid to try again. The fear from your last failure shouldn't stop you. You just need to learn how to adjust, how to pivot, and keep going. So many people give up when they fail. That's because their mindset is all focused on the bad. They're still focused on what happened rather than what they learned. Your greatness within these moments is past the moment. It's time to basically take the lesson you learned in that first step and apply it. So you should be anxious to try again. You should be anxious to do it again, because the more you step into your fear, the less the fear is going to control you. Then the fourth step is, and this is kind of a support metric, it's kind of a key to success I've had in my life, and that is surround yourself with positive people. Because no matter what it is that you're trying to achieve, success, when you surround yourself with these successful, positive people, it's going to help you to feel more supported. One of the best ways to overcome failure is to learn how other people just like you overcame that failure. And so surrounding yourself with the right people is a great way to do that. So find a small group of people or individuals or a community that you want to get involved with so that you can be around people that have gotten past the fears and past the failures that you avoid. And it'll help you to feel more comfortable with stepping into those fears and past those failures. And then finally, I think what you've got to do is you've got to realize that failure is just part of the process. When you recognize failure as just one of the steps you have, failure and mistakes aren't fun, but what they are is they help us to learn to be the best versions of ourselves. They help us to grow, and without that failure, you're never going to grow. If you just constantly succeeded, you're not going to grow and learn and develop. So there's really no secret to success. It's the result of preparation, hard work, and failure after failure after failure. And so when you realize that it's just part of the learning curve, you don't give it as much significance, as much weight. So now that you have these kind of 5 steps to overcoming failure, go out there and do it. Go out there and target the things that you fear the most, because you do have greatness inside of you. Don't let anybody stop you from realizing your full potential. Don't let yourself stop you from realizing your full potential. You should constantly and ongoing look for ways to step into your fear. And that's the message I have for you today. I'd love it if you would share this podcast. I'd love it if you would give me some feedback. Hit me up on the Daily Mastermind on Facebook or Instagram, and let me know what it is you fear. Let me know what it is you're struggling with, because there are so many things we can do to help each other in this journey for success and growth. So anyway, this is George Wright III. This has been the Daily Mastermind. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you on Monday.